Hello and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Adi Achin, proud to present to you a latest series of crisp and clear strategic discussions called the General's Talk, featuring Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar and Lieutenant General Satish Dua. Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, PVSM, AVSM, VSM, a retired Director General of the Artillery. He has deep knowledge and understanding as well as experience in successful defense planning and acquisition. Now a professor in the aerospace department of the IIT Chennai. He is also an author of a strategic blog called the gunnershot.com. Lieutenant General Satish Dua, PVSM, UYSM, SM, VSM, served as the Chief of the Integrated Defense Staff to the Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff Committee. He was also the commander of the 15th Corps looking after the LOC against Pakistan. Today, he is a strategic thinker as well as an author of a book called The India's Brave Hearts. Subscribe to Dev Talks and hear what the generals have to say. Jai Hind. Hello and welcome to Dev Talks. Today, in this episode of the General's Talk, India's newest strategic platform, we are going to discuss on the ongoing debate of the involvement of the Indian Armed Forces in the state of Delhi and many other places in trying to control the COVID crisis that India is today facing. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And I'd like to basically read out a small passage that the Delhi High Court had observed yesterday. And I would want you to, talk about that. So I'm going to leave the floor open to both of you to kind of discuss this. And then we'll have some questions and we'll take the topic forward, sir. Right, sir. So the Delhi High Court yesterday ruled that armies have to be in readiness to first discharge their duty that they have been raised for. We cannot have any compromise on that. Let us not, beyond a point, press on that. Apart from the fact that the armed forces assistance is already being provided in transportation of oxygen cylinders and many other things, this apart from the hospitals that the armed forces have set up, which a lot of people are using at the moment. This is what the court had observed yesterday, sir. So what are your, I'd like to leave the floor open to, for you to discuss this.
The crisis that we are all undergoing is unprecedented. All medical resources, administrative resources, everything is stretched to seams. The Indian Army always comes out in assistance whenever there is any crisis, natural or man-made. Now, the Indian Army has been assisting here also. You yourself mentioned about the hospitals that the Indian Army has created or thrown open some of their existing hospitals. The Indian Army is assisting in various logistic issues. The oxygen trains are being run by the rigs provided by the Indian military. And any other assistance that is required is forthcoming. Every day we see more examples of it. But I agree with you. I'm sure, General Shankar, you will agree, sir, that this issue of the bottom line with which Adi started off the High Court's ruling, starting off by the basic term of reference that Army must maintain its own combat efficiency to fulfill its primary role of safeguarding territory. I'm sure you'll agree with that.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. In fact, let me put it in a different manner. At the outset, I would like to give my best wishes and hope all those people who are affected by COVID recover fast and our system restitutes, and we all of us take care of each other. And this is a time for us as to come together as a nation and move forward. And it's a matter of honor for the armed forces that the nation imposes faith in us every time, during every disaster. But I think what we have to understand beyond the Delhi High Court ruling is that unlike other disasters, this is a little different, and we have to handle this subject differently. Why? Any disaster, take it a storm or a railway accident or anything, is time specific. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and it goes. But this is going to be a long drawn affair. And in the view of this long drawn affair, there's a primary task and a secondary task. And we need to see this, and it is a countrywide affair, a lot of resources required, everything. So I think there is more to it than we just what the Delhi High Court says and what the thing says. Your views, Satish, anything you have to say on this and take it forward.
So, very correctly brought out the fact that this is a long drawn out affair imposes certain prudence and caution on us. Because if we have to retain our ability, and which is non-negotiable, to fulfill our primary task, then we must also know up to what level can we involve ourselves. It should not be detrimental to that, to our primary task. Having said that, there is also no gainsaying the fact that in a crisis situation, military, the uniformed fraternity inspires confidence. Today, more than anything else, that confidence is lacking. In the common public, we need to create more hope, and to that extent, military stepping in any role is reassuring and actually adds value. So it's a judicious balance that has to be drawn between the two. While we have some capabilities, we have already stretched ourselves as far as the medical resources are concerned. But can we also provide certain other aspects? And I think we should discuss that now.
Yeah, that I think is the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The strength that we have. Those are the things. And you've commanded an area. You can discuss, how our infrastructure is actually geared, on which we can actually piggyback or sort of ride on that infrastructure that you commanded in area headquarters.
I think you brought out a very valid point. We all know the facilities of the armed forces medical services as a whole is finite and limited, and it is only for the small segment of a healthy population. It's not for and it's not geared for epidemics. It's geared for fighting and keeping people fit and fighting. That's the first thing. But having said that, like what General Dua said, there are a lot of things which the armed forces, actually the first thing is the moment the army is there, the uniform is there, it infuses confidence in the people that we are there, right? The second thing which the whole system, the armed forces get into the thing is discipline and organization. If you see good states or good countries, why they are successfully fighting this corona, it is because of organization and discipline. So, and when an army man goes on ground and says, even one chap goes and says, look, just stand in a line, people will stand in a line. And that itself quells panic. So, quelling panic, infusing confidence, getting organization and getting discipline into this whole business, especially where there is chaos prevailing, like in Delhi, will go a long way in, sorting out things. Then, of course, you have the areas. Every area has sub areas and stations under it, and which is a grid, available with every state, every nook and corner, every district is covered. So that a lateral connect can be formed. So you have a monitoring system, and you have a reinforcing system to know exactly what is going wrong. And a district administrator needs something, through the army channel. See, the problem is you have to understand, health is a state subject. It is the state chief minister and the chief minister and the district headquarters and the district minister, health officials and the DM who have to handle it. Whereas many of our resources are at the central level. So to go through that level, and especially when there are party differences, and at this point of time, there are. Let's accept the fact that there are political differences between the way center is behaving and the states are behaving. In this, organization can, like the army, can get resources, get things moving in a different level, and get issues which have to be fire fought at a district level done at the center level, which is important. I'm sure you also have had similar experiences when you commanded 16 Corps, General Dua.
So, while I agree with you, but there is a little pitfall in this. I feel that if military is called in, or if military steps in to assist, there should be a clearly defined charter for the military. The government should lay down what exactly you want us to do. it should not be, to put in a very loosely speaking, it should not be the situation has been taken over by the army, because we are, India is a vast country, and we are equipped to assist in several facets, but we are not equipped to handle the whole thing in addition to our primary task. We don't have that kind of expertise. So we should assist either in coordination, in which you just brought out our strengths. We can assist somewhat in the medical resources, because our medical resources are now stretched to seams. We can. I've been hearing of people talking of setting up field hospitals. If we can set up field hospitals, we do have some bricks and structures, but our medical resources for the field hospitals have already been plugged in somewhere. So all in all, medical resources is one aspect to which I think we've already stretched. And logistics. Yes, we have certain strengths in logistics. In logistics, we can assist in a significant manner. We already are, and we can perhaps upscale that. But it should also be without compromising our logistics requirements for the field formations on the borders. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that there has to be a specific charter. It has to be mentioned. It has to be specified to the army, and I'm sure we will be able to add value to that charter.
Not only that, the hospitals which have been made by the army, like excess capacity, like in Gandhinagar and Delhi and all, they've been made by DRDO, army, armed forces, and all that. Now we don't have the resources to run it.
Yes,
the resources have to be pulled in. Right, from others. We can help organize that hospital. After that, someone has to take it over. The second thing which I feel, where we can help hell of a lot is in handling the short supplies. When I say short supplies, those which are gone into the black market. The moment you open a fair price shop kind of a thing, some kind of a thing with the help of the army, we can only assist. The army can't be opening up a canteen kind of facility. But definitely, where there are things in short supply, like, Chennai has opened counters for the public in a government hospital for Remdesivir, where a person can go and get Remdesivir at 1,500 rupees or whatever the government rate is, instead of a black market. Definitely, army can help in those. Army can help. The moment the army is there and the government facility is there, public is, reinforced in its thinking. They know कि यार कोई है जो हमारे लिए कर रहा है. That is important. That is more important than anything else. The way I look at it, army can infuse confidence and quell panic. That's the fundamental. If we can put that into equation and in a larger scale, I think we are okay.
Yes, Adi, you were asking something.
Actually, sir, my main question in this whole thing, the debate about involvement of army has not been defined by pretty much anyone. Even the politicians or anybody who's come out and said, let's get the army involved. Nobody said what they want the army to do.
Exactly.
Right?
Except the Delhi government.
Well, they've also not specified, sir, to my mind. I mean, they've not given a charter saying that, okay, this is what we want the army to run the hospitals, or we want the army to run the administration, or what is it? Bring in the army is a very open term, sir, is what they have meant.
I agree with you there.
So what is it, in your opinion, that they expect out of us, out of the armed forces, firstly?
Look, if you go only by the High Court request of the Delhi government and the ruling, they wanted army to take over and run the hospitals and run a whole lot of medical facilities. With the government has said, look, if you do that, then the army's efficiency will get, what shall I say, diluted, and they will not be able to do the primary job for which they are raised. So the Delhi government is very clearly aiming to get someone in to manage that show. I mean, that is very clear that the situation is out of hand for them, and they probably need it, but not the way they want it.
And that what I am very specifically suggesting that we should not do. We should not be taking over.
See, we are not
it can't be a turnkey thing handed over to the army.
Yeah, exactly. And look, there's an elected government with all departments and everything. We can come and do firefighting. That's it.
Yeah.
Help them organize better, right? And that's it. And that's one. Number two, not all governments have asked for it.
Hmm.
Many governments are handling things on their own and quite competently. Yeah, there are certain governments which don't have the capacities, like it happened in Bihar. I suppose the reason why we moved a couple of field hospitals to Bihar is probably they don't have the capacities. So augmentation of capacity or establishment of capacity is okay. Again, augmentation of capacity is a permanent thing which we should do and give to the thing. But deploying your capacities should be temporary. It can't be a permanent thing because, like we discussed, it is a long-term affair.
Correct. So the clear charter would be helpful. So
Yeah.
my only worry, being from an armed forces family myself, my only worry is for people who serve the nation, again like yourselves, veterans. These hospitals that have been set up in various different cities, the the empanelment which happens in again various different cities. If that capacity is going to be used, and I'm not saying which one is important, which one is not, but a facility which has been provided for the armed forces and for the veterans, if it gets opened up, it will get overburdened. So what happens to the care which is required for the veterans and people, the families, and the men from the armed forces itself?
Uh, so far, the ECHS has been resting on empaneled hospitals. Now, during this crisis, what we call as empaneled hospitals are stretched to seams by themselves. I mean, it's a crisis of a great magnitude where a lot of public pressure is coming on all these hospitals, and we've been hearing stories of all this. Now, when you goes to the military hospitals, except for some places, some towns where the load is not so much, and in other places, the veterans have not been going to the military hospitals because of the load. So all in all, uh, and on the other hand, like General Shankar and we brought out and we were discussing, a lot of medical resources during this crisis of the military have actually been extended for the civilian brethren. All that put together, there is an issue as far as the veterans are concerned because they were not finding support. All the medical hospitals of the military have been thrown open for the veterans as of now because the empaneled hospitals are not able to take the load. But let us remember that they are all stretched. All their resources are stretched to seams, and there is a bit of an issue. But with the expanded capacity at every place, for example, in Delhi Base Hospital, I'm aware that it has been expanded in 2 different phases and counting. So the bed capacities have been expanded, additional resources have been deployed, and veterans are getting good care. If there are an odd incidents that we've seen, that is a universal thing that's happening everywhere, even in the civil stream.
There's a bit of angst amongst the veterans because they can't go to the empanel hospitals. Your own military hospitals are chock-a-block full, and some of the veterans do feel that look, these military hospitals are being thrown open to the civilians, and why? Especially when they themselves don't get. So this is a difficult time where we have to take a humanitarian call. It's not that the civilian gets less corona or more corona or vis-a-vis or vice versa. So we need to share, we need to have empathy, we need to have maturity. If an odd hospital says no, you have your own facilities, you go there, that's wrong. So I think the empaneled hospitals also have to be sensitized of the fact that the military hospitals are being utilized by civilians also, right? And they have to entertain veterans. You can't just throw a veteran and say go to this military hospital, right? And by nature, the military man would like to go to the military hospital. I mean, it's like so we need to help them out also. So I think, yeah, of course, as we keep expanding capacities and probably the thing comes down, the issue will resolve. But we need to have a slightly more empathetic view on this whole affair, and a sensitiveness of this thing also has to be taken into account. Because as a nation, we have only that much, and we have to share.
Basically, a more realistic outlook towards the whole situation.
Yeah, you have to have, and a sensitivity. See, at times, some government might feel a bit insensitive about the whole affair. Like I said, oh, you're a army chap, go to the a military hospital. Or why are you not giving me a space of the military hospital? It's a, that. And I think a bit of civil military liaison at this level and better coordination is important. That's where the armed forces step in.
So another, as a non-military person, one thought that comes into mind every time somebody says that bring in the army to use. Well, the army, as the High Court clearly observed, is there for the protection of our country. What kind of an impact does deployment of this kind, in terms of resources, in terms of manpower, in terms of whole other things that go into an operation like this, will have on the battle readiness of the army? Looking at the Chinese sitting on the north, and Pakistan is quite silent at the moment, but we've got a coup happening in Myanmar. The entire place needs to be covered. There's a lot which is happening as far as the defense of this country. So, Jayantula, what would you say would be the impact on this whole thing?
First of all, let me reassure you and all the viewers, let me reassure everyone in the country that the military does not lose sight of its aim, of the primary role, which is safeguarding the territorial integrity of the country. Nearly the entire military population has been vaccinated. So they are that much safer. They are disciplined body, so they are observing all the precautions and COVID protocols. So I am saying that they are to that extent protected against being infected. As far as the field formations are concerned, that is on the borders and those in the depth as reserves, Army has not lost sight of the fact that those are not being depleted in any manner whatsoever, whether it is the combat edge, whether it is the logistic capability, or even the medical resources required for that. So we are keeping our combat edge alive. We are keeping the field formation absolutely in a combat-worthy and battle-readiness state. It is the resources that are being utilized for helping out in the hinterland, in the country, whether it is medical or logistics or any other assistance that has been put out. It is from either our depth formations or static establishments, like General Shankar brought out initially, being the area headquarters. So there are certain administrative infrastructure that we have in the length and throughout the length and breadth of the country. It is that which is being used without or not at the expense of the operational readiness of the field formations that affects our borders.
Just to put what he said in perspective, like take a division. Normally, a division is stationed in a couple of big stations, right? Now, each division has 2 field hospitals, and those 2 field hospitals are meant for the operational, health of the division to take care. And these stations invariably have a military hospital, and that is static. When the division moves out for operations, that military hospital does everything in the rear. So in all this, the military hospitals are the ones which are committed right now. Okay, maybe some elements of the field hospital staff and all would be augmenting the military hospitals to cater for the rush locally. Look, you have to now take your gaze out of Delhi and look at other places, right? But if the situation arises, these field hospitals will pack up their bags and move with the formations and go. And those which are like what General Dua said, those who are already ahead, they're ready. I mean, they're not committed in any of these things, and they're vaccinated and all. So there is a difference. Then, of course, the question will come: what level, what will happen, what is the threat perception, and all that. So that we had discussed. The chances of a full-scale war and going into things are at this point of time remote for the whole world. Not only for this thing. Everyone is in a state of unsure of this thing. So what we have to really cater for is probably low-level operations. I mean, if we get into high-level operations, we'll look at it. I'm sure the nation will respond. right?
So,
That's how it is. Yeah, am I okay, Satish? Anything else you want to add on this?
No, thank you. That really sums it up. I think that's a reassuring note.
Yeah, I mean,
Upon.
I don't think the nation has to bother.
mm,
And I also must tell you that the armed forces will go flat out to do everything for the nation. There's a time to do, right? Yeah.
actually, sir, I'd like you, both to actually give us sort of a closing comment on that one thought. Uh, every time there's a national disaster that happens, the armed forces is brought in, and they do a fantastic job of it. And that's always kudos to the organization, the manpower which is working there. Even during the China virus time, our Air Force guys went into Wuhan, brought in our people, and came back. And many such operations have been taking place. My question to you is, one, the armed forces, as we've discussed, are not, I mean, we can help, but they're not geared up for this disaster management sort of a situation, sir. Now, if we see this happening, my question is very simple, sir, on two aspects. If the armed forces have to do this disaster management process and business around the country, one, how should the armed forces be geared up? And two, what is the kind of empowerment that needs to be given to the armed forces in times of crisis to organize all the resources available within the state and the nation? Because you also mentioned that there is a state and there is a political difference and this and that. So, is there something that you would like to say on the structure that could be created for such a situation?
It is not as if the military is not prepared at all. But it is true that now that the last couple of decades that the NDMA has been formed, there is a disaster management structure in the country, and disaster management battalions have been raised. So those are the ones who are equipped and trained to plug in during such crisis. However, military also has its own bricks. Bricks is a certain thing that we call a certain number of stores, equipment, etc., that is set aside for such eventualities. We do participate. I mean, as a chief of IDS, I did take part in the National Crisis Management Group, where we met every day when there were these floods or any such situations. However, our resources may fall short beyond a certain point, like it is happening as of now. We need to ensure that resources are provided, even if there are other organs of the government that may help, that may plug in. I also want to leave another thought, which I have been suggesting earlier in articles and otherwise, is that we also have to understand. We also need to go perhaps beyond the military. There are territorial army battalions that could be raised, which can have specialized skill sets. For instance, from a lot of ex-servicemen, we could have raised, we can raise, and it's been 1 year, we could have raised a territorial army battalion from the ex-medical corps personnel, and we could have had a strong force of paramedics. We can also train the National Cadet Corps in first aid duties, and those could have helped. We could have plugged in. That's a strong and a potent force spread all over the country. We could use the home guards effectively. We can use the police forces, all the central armed police forces and the paramilitary forces in the logistics and other such like duties, just like the military. So there are other vast resources and skill sets that are available. We need to just synergize the energies of different such organs and prepare for this. Hopefully now, as a matter of reforms, we will take up more of this.
I mean, just to expand on what General Dua said, I think he's brought out a very valid point. What is the best defense against the coronavirus? Mask, social distancing, corona appropriate behavior. And that's how China has bet this virus. Let's grant it to them. Indian people by nature are not prone to follow discipline that well. So why can't you get home guards, NCC, everyone, when you can place home guards boys and girls and NCC at traffic junction, to direct traffic, why can't you make them spread out and just get people to enforce these disciplines? Very fundamental thing, right? But having said that, since the larger question, I'll get back to the armed forces. You see, uh, at every state level, you have a civil military conference regularly, civil military tie up, and a SOP existing. And with that, you have already an understanding as to how to respond to disasters. It's not as if it's not there, it's there. At least I did it for Bombay 2 years continuously, where my BGS used to go and have a word with the Bombay, BMC and chief minister and all that, and work out as to how to respond to situations because of Bombay floods. It's a recurring affair. And then the NDMA was also co-opted into it, right? NDMA has got resources. It's not only the state; the NDMA has. So this is there, but the scale of this virus has been beyond, and scope has been beyond all this. Hopefully, we should have a different approach for the third wave and the fourth wave, and maybe that will help synergize this nation to respond to national tragedies rather than flounder the way we are at this point of time. I wouldn't say not the whole country again. I say a few cities and a few areas which are finding it hard put to cope with the situation. And I'm sure at this point of time, things will sort out. If you see the past 2 days, Delhi, the number of cases have reduced. The deaths hopefully will start reducing significantly now. And if I take a overview, which I saw yesterday in a doctor's roundtable, the West is probably getting over the hump. The central part of the country is now in the hump and probably reduce. It's the eastern part which is going to bear the brunt. And let's hope for the best.
So I mean, the main thing that comes out is armed forces can actually augment the entire effort. I mean, and that is something that we've been seeing. Our aircraft have been flying day and night. There has been a lot of activity done by setting up hospitals around Delhi and many other places, Ahmedabad, Bihar, and stuff like that. A lot of effort has been made in terms of the distribution and things. But I guess one thing, I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, and I think you mentioned it in a certain way, but I'll put it in another way. Is whenever there is a disaster, I think the general public literally looks up to the army and says, "Up, kuch karo." Because I think it's just the factor that they find it to be a very stable organization, very, very, unflaundering. And except that debacle in 1962, there has always been good news from the army. So that's something that is understandable. But of course, the points that you've mentioned that about the whole spreading thin of the already existing resources and stuff, these are something that I think going forward one will have to contend to. So, sir, thank you so much for bringing out some very, very valid points. And on this day where probably, and I hope that India is just coming on towards the somewhere in the in the peak when we are going to see a downfall of the cases and the recovery is going up. Thanks once again, sir, and we'll meet on another day on another topic for the general stock.
Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.